This is a soybean. Right now, millions of tons of these are sitting in fields just like this, with nowhere to go because of Washington's trade wars. Americans already pay 86% of the tariffs, and now Washington's idea of a solution is to take even more of your money to bail out farmers for a problem that they created. If Washington won't be serious about helping the American people, I will. Soybeans aren't just food. They can become crayons, paints, candles, even road materials and machine lubricants. Every one of these is an opportunity for new small businesses right here in Tennessee. Local people helping local farmers. New businesses helping local communities. That's how we take back America. And if you send me to Washington, I'll clear the red tape and open doors so these opportunities can grow.
Donald Trump and his administration just got caught in one of the most corrupt cover-ups I've seen so far during his term, and that's saying something. Genuinely one of the craziest stories I've read. So according to MSNBC, in some new reporting, in an undercover operation last year, the FBI recorded Tom Homan, the border czar that Trump hired, accepting $50,000 in cash after indicating he could help the agents who were posing as business executives, obviously for the investigation, win government contracts in a second Trump admin. He was saying to these guys, hey, you give me money, I'll help you make money through the government. Now, the FBI and the DOJ planned to wait to see whether Homan would deliver on his alleged promise once he got into the White House to really solidify the crime. But then the Trump administration closed the investigation. So this high-ranking Trump official was caught on camera in what is practically a bribery scheme, and the Trump admin said, you know, actually, we don't want to bring charges mysteriously, right? It is blatant corruption. And if it wasn't already clear from Trump's crypto scheme or his other business ventures, he and his buddies look at government service as an opportunity to make money, not as an opportunity to help people.
So according to Representative Stansberry, who was part of the House Oversight Committee, when they were questioning Alex Acosta, it came out that there were over 40 minors that testified that they were assaulted and trafficked by Epstein when he was first investigated in Florida. They all gave sworn statements to the FBI, and the prosecutor wrote an 82-page memo to the U.S. Attorney's Office recommending he be prosecuted. They included evidence, the interviews, and a 52-page indictment. And Alex Acosta, Trump's former labor secretary, said he decided not to prosecute without looking at any of the evidence, without listening to any of the interviews, because he assumed the children were lying. He did not believe that anything illegal had happened. And now Kash Patel, the FBI director, is saying the same exact thing. Seems pretty fishy to me.
Well, this is a massive breaking news about corruption in the Trump administration. Tom Homan, who runs ICE, was actually caught last year by undercover FBI agents accepting $50,000 from them when he thought they were business executives, and he was like, I can help you get contracts in a second Trump administration. Look at this. Was investigated for accepting $50,000 from FBI agents, and then the Trump administration shut it down. They literally have him on tape accepting $50,000 in cash after saying, I can help you get contracts with the second Trump administration. And then the DOJ shut that down. Shut down a criminal investigation in which they had somebody on film taking money. This is what we were telling you about when we said that this administration was corrupt. This guy, who is brutally going after any brown or black person, if they have a record or not, with his masked agents, is taking bribes, or at least open to taking bribes. So Republicans, what do you have to say for this? I assume you're going to call on the Trump administration to launch an independent investigation and appoint a special prosecutor to look into this that will not have any interference from the DOJ. Of course, they're not going to do that. And of course, Republicans don't care because the rules apply only for one set of people and it's not them. This is massive corruption at a mega level. There need to be massive investigations. And I hope you share this with everybody you know. This madness has to stop.
Democracy requires courage. Many of you are understandably scared. frightened, at least demoralized. Some of you are depressed and despairing. I get it. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I think, oh my God, I don't want to read the paper. I don't want to see what's going on. We have a madman in the Oval Office surrounded by fanatics. It's scary. But this is exactly the time at which your involvement and activism and your courage are most needed. It's easy to take democracy for granted. It's easy to assume that this document, this Constitution, is in stone. It's not. The people who have fought for this, died for this, my parents' generation that fought in World War II for this, they put their lives on the line. Now, I'm not saying you should put your life on the line or we need to put our lives on the line, but we need to at least have the courage to express our views, not be afraid, to be clear about what our views are, have the courage to say to our employers, you should not be surrendering to the Trump administration, have the courage to boycott companies that are surrendering to Trump and the authoritarians. We need to have the courage to organize and mobilize. This is not child's play, and it is not theory. It is happening now.
Tom Homan, Trump's so-called border czar, was caught on FBI tape accepting $50,000 in cash from undercover agents posing as contractors. He allegedly promised to steer them government contracts once Trump returned to power. This is a stunning new scoop from Carol Leonnig and Ken Delanian at MSNBC. Breaking news. Prosecutors believe they had a very strong case: conspiracy, bribery, fraud. They even had him on camera, but the moment Trump took office again in January, the Justice Department shut it all down. Trump's own appointees smeared the probe as deep state and killed it before it could reach court. Just think about that. A top White House official pocketing cash from supposed contractors, and instead of facing justice, the investigation was buried. This is the same guy smearing immigrants as criminals while separating families, locking up children, and shipping people to foreign prisons without due process. This is not law and order. This is the Trump regime protecting its own, silencing investigators, and erasing accountability while demanding total loyalty and obedience. Objectively, I'm talking objectively, this is the most corrupt administration the United States has ever seen. Follow along for more updates and listen to the Midas Touch podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Donald Trump is now illegally planning on filing criminal charges against his political opponents, even though they committed no crime. Watch this clip, and we're going to talk about it.
He's now using the power of the federal government, making a new move against the New York Attorney General who prosecuted him, Letitia James.
George, this is a major escalation of the president's effort to get retribution against his political rivals. ABC News has learned that President Trump is expected to fire a top federal prosecutor for failing to file criminal charges against Letitia James, somebody who is obviously very high on the president's enemies list. And his office has been investigating James for 5 months on allegations of mortgage fraud that have been brought by the administration. He found no evidence to go forward with the prosecution, declined to do so, and now we are told that he will be fired. ABC News has learned that the president intends to put somebody else in the U.S. Attorney's office who will more aggressively prosecute the New York Attorney General.
Let's be really clear here, folks. Trump is ordering that criminal charges be filed against his political opponents, even though no crime has been committed. This is literally illegal. It is a crime in America what Trump is doing. It is also the kind of thing you see in Russia and China. It is un-American. It's fascism. I mean, I hate to use that word because we don't use it much in America, but it is. This is incredibly scary stuff, guys. We have entered an area now that is so dangerous what Trump is doing, and he's only 8 months into the presidency. So dangerous what he is doing. He is abusing the powers of the presidency. He is destroying anybody who disagrees with him, whether it's TV, whether it's companies. This is
just incredibly dangerous what is happening right now. I just am speechless.
Guys, someone just sent me a video that I was clipped in from the Disney protest. It was a whole news segment with Ari Melber about all the people who are boycotting Disney Plus and Hulu. And I just have to say, I'm so proud. Like, I'm so proud to watch what people are doing right now. It brought me down a bit of a wormhole, and I'm watching all these videos of people talking about canceling and how Disney Plus and Hulu are like begging people to come back. And I think we're having a moment here where we are realizing something really important, and we realized it with the Target boycott, but I want to remind you guys that the vast majority of purchasing power in this country lies with people who support democracy and support inclusion and diversity and all those things. If all of us come together and absolutely abandon companies who abandon us, we become the most powerful lobbying force in the country. Don't forget it. What we've done to Target, what we've done to Tesla, what we are doing to Disney Plus and Hulu right now, and hopefully all of the companies associated with this mess. What we should be doing also to Amazon, by the way. Sorry, but we should. We have so much power when we use our dollars for good and withhold them when they are funding evil things. I'm really proud of you. Every single one of you. I know it's an inconvenience to give up streaming platforms. Those of you who have young kids, it can be a really big inconvenience. This is a place where we have so much power. We have the power to grind this country to a halt if we stop spending our money. Don't forget it. Use it strategically. And if you're still on the fence about making that cancellation, please do it. It's a sacrifice you can make to support the First Amendment and to help undermine this tyrant who thinks that a president is a king. Proud of y'all.
Every person is pro-cancel culture. Everyone has a line where if someone does something or says something messed up, you think they should be fired and you want to cancel them socially. Cancel culture. We debate on where cancel culture should be. Where should the culture be? What should be in the window of what's deemed acceptable? What Trump's regime is doing right now is full-on state repression of speech. This is the government. The First Amendment makes a restriction on government's power to regulate your speech. I'm someone who criticized left-wing cancel culture because cancel culture should be debated. The government getting involved is where the First Amendment comes in. But now Trump supporters are saying, well, you said there's consequence culture. Yeah, there should be social consequences if you Nazi post. Okay, there should be social consequences. But the government should not put you in jail. Trump voters are either going to be too goofy and silly to understand that point, or they are going to lie about it and pretend like they don't know the difference there between the big government doing censorship, state repression, versus people on Twitter getting mad in mobs and doing Twitter mobs to contact employers, which can be terrible, sure, but it's not the authoritarian government. Trump saying anyone who talks bad about him should be completely censored by the government. This is the entire point of the First Amendment, but they will drop it soon as possible because Trump is their daddy, okay? Please drop a like, repost this video, and follow my page. This might be the last time we talk. Who knows what Trump is going to do next?
What is wrong with him? Seriously, like, I know I shouldn't be surprised by Trump at this point. Every day he still surprises me. Canceling like a hunger survey. It literally is the government looking at how many people are hungry in the US. Federal government uses it, state governments use it, cities use it to try to figure out whether programs are working, whether hunger is getting worse, right? Whether they need to allocate more money, maybe less money if the programs are working. But it's just trying to know whether people are hungry and in need. And Trump doesn't want to know. He says it's woke. It's too woke. Caring, yeah, Jesus was woke, I guess, right? Caring about hungry people is woke. What the like? I really don't get it, guys. I mean, I do get it. This is incredibly dangerous. He's trying to destroy the media, free media. First he went after lawyers. Then he went after comedians. Literally, 2 more comedians. First they went after Jimmy Kimmel. Now they're trying to get Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon off the air now too. Now he's going after the media, trying to shut down all independent media. You know, at least from TV, threatening the licenses of all the TV stations, the TV media. And now we're afraid of counting hungry people because that would be woke to care about people who are hungry. Seriously?
So the latest bullshit move from Trump is he came out and he declared Antifa as a terrorist organization. First of all, it's not an organization. It is not a situation where there is an organized group of people that have meetings and they have a headquarters and all that shit. Antifa is a word that means anti, meaning against, And the second part, fa, meaning fascism. So anti-fascism, which is what we fought wars for, was to keep fascism out of our country. Our soldiers fought and died for that principle. And now we have a POTUS who is saying Antifa is evil to the point of being terrorism. So if you are against Antifa, meaning you are against anti-fascism, that means you are for fascism. And this is the manipulation, right? This is what he wants his weak-minded base to buy into. This is the premise. This is propaganda 101. Create this word that and project it in a way so that people conflate Antifa as evil. Now, here's the other aspect of this. When you come out and you say Antifa's terrorist organization, why he's doing that is so now he gets to be the ultimate arbiter of who Antifa is. So now all he has to do is say, this person is Antifa. And immediately it goes into this person is a terrorist. And now he can apply the unfettered rules that he wants as a dictator to eliminate terrorists, the people that he does not like. See how that works? Basically, he has set up a pattern. Antifa is terrorism. Who gets to decide who Antifa is? The dictator, the orange fucked up dictator gets to decide. If he points his fucking crusty finger at you and says, you're Antifa, now you're a terrorist, you get thrown in a gulag. That's how dictatorships and banana republics work. And I told you from day one, Trump wanted to be a dictator. And everybody said, oh no, you're overreacting. Oh, you're overreacting. When I saw that clip of him on the airplane, and it was a hot mic moment where he was talking to somebody and he said, you see these leaders. I think it was the Korean leader, Kim Jong-un. I'm not sure, but I think that's what he said. Kim Jong-un, you see him and people stand at attention and they have to salute him and they have to toe the line. I want my people to have to do that too. It wasn't hard to see exactly what this fucktard wanted from day one. He's been transparent about it. And then later on he came out and he said, I'm going to be a dictator from day one. And even then people were saying, oh, you're overreacting. He doesn't want to be a dictator. That's just talk. And now look at where we are. Free speech is being censored. Free speech, our constitutionally protected right, has been thrown into the garbage. If you say something that the great leader does not like, gulag, right? Or some kind of punishment. Jimmy Kimmel loses his show because Trump came out and he literally said, they're against me. That's the mind of a 5-year-old fucking child. That is somebody that's so emotionally stunted. That is the emotional development of a 5-year-old child. They're against me. When this maggot, this is your strong man, your big strong man. He's so fucking fragile that, oh, they're saying jokes about me. They're against me. I have to shut them down because I'm so fucking sensitive that I can't take anybody saying anything that's not 100% fucking positive about me. Welcome to the banana fucking republic, you idiots, you. Because you fucking asked for it, and it's only gonna get fucking worse from here.
Is political violence a legitimate resistance tool? Oh yeah, but is assassination a part of that? No. Let's talk about what resistance history has to say about both. It's going to be a bumpy ride, folks, so just strap in. I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm an American scholar of resistance history at the University of Southern Denmark and Johns Hopkins, and the author of A Resistance History of the United States. When does violence become an option, on the table, and then permitted, and then maybe necessary in American history? Although a kind of violence results when people get angry, of course, when they're desperate, violence as a resistance tool happens when a few other things converge. And understanding them helps us understand what resistance is about and how it actually works. See, most people confuse all protest and opposition with resistance. Now, they're related and they're worth studying, but they're not the same thing. Resistance is much more pointed. It's what happens when people have had enough of an abusive authority, usually a state, always a regime, and want to do something to change it, but something that lasts, something that creates or seeks to create structural, permanent change, the kind that topples an empire, that ends the oppression of millions, that tears up constitutions, whatever it takes to end exploitation and brutality at scale, against usually a government doing anything but acting in the interests of the governed. That's after resistance moments become movements. Most fail, but if you succeed, then we learn a lot from both. When it comes to violence and resistance, there are a few conditions that have to be met. Some preconditions, some precipitants, some triggers. Peaceful paths to oppositions have to reveal themselves as not just ineffective, but illegitimate. They don't work to achieve change because they're structured to keep change from happening. And then there's what we call hidden transcripts. The illegal actions to address the effects of abusive authority can't scale enough to erode the power behind the authority. Think the Underground Railroad, right? The 1850s was a period of major escalation. The First Republic was in overdrive to protect the interests of the enslavers who ran it. The courts, the Congress, the executive, all in service to the enslavers. On the other side, the hidden transcript was the Underground Railroad, getting all of those people out of slavery. But guess which one was building faster? The Underground Railroad was doing a lot to address the symptoms, but it was never going to be enough to cure the disease. And the third condition is that the abusive authority metastasizes, spreads like a cancer. All abusive authority does, it will grow and expand and continue until it is stopped. And as in the 1840s and 1850s, the enslavers' republic was expanding almost exponentially, even using the military as a tool, invading another country, engaging in war as pretty much an effort to protect the interests of the few guys to make more money through oppressing other people. For all the talk about America spreading liberty, the United States was actually in the business of spreading slavery across North America. When those three conditions emerge, resistance movements then have to face the question that changes everything that a lot of people are asking today. What happens next? Because structural change, permanent change, the kind that erases enslaver power from the Constitution forever, you don't get there with a lawsuit or a sign. I wish it was different. People tried. They failed. Our history says it doesn't work that way. Meanwhile, today, right now, there are people who never faced that question or seem to know our history, lecturing everyone from some smug pedestal about violence having no place in our democracy. As if the democracy they're talking about wasn't built and preserved, bought and paid for by people willing to make just those choices. It's practically a pacifist message. Violence is never okay, always off the table, is the same kind of absolutist free speech approach that is so absurd these days. The lesson from the 18th century is that the threat of violence from the people is the only thing that keeps authority from abuse. It's in the Declaration of Independence. And if people still believe that violence has no role, there's a cemetery in Gettysburg they need to visit. But there's also one in Boston. It's called the Old Granary Burying Ground. It's right off the Common. It's just, 5 minutes from the Park Street T. Just come out and go up. The Patriot resistance of the American Revolution knew that well, and some of them are in that ground. Paul Revere's there, John Hancock is there, and Samuel Adams is there. And someone wearing Samuel Adams' cloak was working some small courtyards near the State House in Boston on March 5th, 1770. The Boston Massacre not only wasn't a massacre, it wasn't spontaneous. It was strategic provocation by the Patriots, manipulating a tense moment in the city. The men who died in that orchestrated political violence were part of the strategic provocation that is an important part of resistance violence. Patriots like Samuel Adams studied what had happened just a year and a half earlier, St. George's Fields in Southwark. In 1768, British troops, just south of the Thames in London, fired on protesters demanding that an opposition political figure, a guy named John Wilkes, be released from prison. The authorities freaked out, called out troops, and then the protesters started hurling rocks at the troops. And then the soldiers from the Foot Guards, I think, opened fire. 11 protesters were killed. The result was a spin campaign by the opposition, complete with visuals, that turned it into the massacre at St. George's Field. And Adams grasped something essential. Dead protesters can transform public opinion, turning it against the government. Dead colonials would turn British authority from just being irritating to them to being seen as tyrannical. As Adams said explicitly about those tactics, you can't always make events, but you can always improve them. You can make them serve your purposes. That's the ultimate end of strategic provocation. There has to be a bigger picture. It can't just be about violence. Violence on its own is just dumb. But you have to be okay with the cost, with knowing that not everyone gets to go home. As James Scott put it, speaking of resistance, no flood, no river. So what's the psychological reality when you cross that line, when you unleash the flood? Well, there are two thinkers who I read a lot who lived through fascism who understood this better than most. There's Hannah Arendt, who saw that people get confused about violence because they treat it like it has an inherent moral value. It doesn't. In this sense, violence can be a tool, like a hammer or a scalpel, like an axe. An axe is not good or evil, right? It depends whether you're a Forrester or if you're Lizzie Borden. Same with violence. The moral question isn't whether violence is right or wrong. It's whether a specific violence, used a specific way, achieves something that justifies the cost. But Albert Camus went deeper in The Rebel. He asked the question that haunts every resistor. How do you fight monsters without becoming one? The person who chooses violence to end oppression faces a paradox with no solution. You must violate human dignity to defend it. Camus said, you can't still and stay innocent. The question isn't whether it's justified. Sometimes it is. But you have to be crystal clear about that because the question becomes whether you can live with what it makes you. Which brings us to the stupidest version of resistance violence, assassination. When resistance movements have tried to use political assassination as a tool, let's talk about what's happened. Russia, 1881, Alexander II. A socialist resistance group was trying to overthrow the Tsars, and they adopted political assassination explicitly as a tool of doing it. They adopted this idea of propaganda by the deed, which is a form of strategic provocation. They finally got Alexander II after trying a few times, but it brought worse oppression under Alexander III. The assassination of Alexander II, and others like it, just made the establishment scared, not unstable. So they crack down and make things worse. But the most famous example that you might know of might be Franz Ferdinand, 1914. In killing him, the Black Hand thought they were striking a blow for Serbian unity. Instead, they lit this fuse on collapse. The result was World War I, which killed 1 in 4 Serbs. Think about that. Every fourth person you know, gone. Sure, in the end, after the war, they got a sort of unified Slavic state, Yugoslavia. But Serbia bled out so badly in the process that they couldn't even properly run the thing they'd killed a quarter of their population to create. So if you're dumb about using assassination, you can get exactly what you asked for, but the price makes the prize meaningless. That whole period in the first part of the 20th century, man, saw a lot of attempts like that, which all proved a resistance rule. It doesn't work. The costs can be catastrophic, unbearable. Even success in the moment can mean losing everything that makes winning matter. Those movements were good at resisting, but terrible at resistance. What they missed in all of their passion for change was to think hard about what they were doing. They consistently mistook dramatic action for effective action. They believed in the theatrical assassination, the dramatic gesture that would wake up the masses. Later resistance movements learned from those mistakes. Wiping out a generation of your people will make that kind of impression. The only arguable exception, and let's talk about this for a second, the World War II resistance movements, who learned to target the machinery, not the symbol. They didn't go after Hitler. They went after the functionaries who actually made the system run. Let's talk for a second about Reinhard Heydrich, 1942, the architect of the final solution. Czech agents trained by the British knew killing him would bring savage reprisals, and it did. 2 whole villages erased, 5,000 murdered. And here's the unbearable part. The local Czech resistance, who knew what was going on the ground, actually begged London to call it off. They knew what was going to come. The Nazis are nothing if not predictable. But the government that was in exile in London needed to prove that Czech resistance was a real thing to the Allies so they could keep getting support. So those 5,000 people paid a price for a political calculation that they never agreed to. And the ultimate gut punch about it, which proves the existing rule, is that killing Heydrich actually accelerated the Holocaust. The Nazis named Operation Reinhardt after him, the death camps that killed 1.5 million Jews. His assassination became a Nazi rallying cry to finish what he started. And that's the brutal truth about assassination. Even when you hit the right target, even when you know exactly who they are and what they do, the violence can spiral in ways you never intended. The resistance thought they were throwing sand in the gears. Instead, they gave the machine a reason to run faster. Meanwhile, the Polish Home Army was methodically killing prison guards and deportation clerks. The Danish resistance was eliminating Nazi informers left and right, 400 by the end of the war. The French were assassinating the local collaborators who could identify resistance members. No glory, no headlines, but the trains ran late. The deportation slowed. The resistance network survived. So by 1944, resistance movements across Europe had figured that out. They stopped going after the symbols and started going after the gears. Not the architect of the Holocaust, but the clerk who processes the deportation orders. Not the general, the informer who points out which house to raid. And it worked. It actually disrupted operations. It actually saved lives. But nobody remembers their names because there was nothing glorious about shooting a collaborator outside of a cafe on Vestergal. That's what effective resistance looks like. Anonymous, methodical, and focused on function over symbolism. So let's talk about the present moment. Tough territory for a historian. We're terrible fortune tellers. We're worse about present analysis. We're focused on looking in the past. But let's talk about patterns and how they might fit to today. Part of this is why claiming the radical left killed Charlie Kirk. It makes no sense. That radical left doesn't exist in America. So it's what you say when you don't care about facts and you have a different agenda. So here's what history actually tells us. Symbolic assassination doesn't work, never has. The socialists who went after czars made authoritarians stronger. The Black Hand killed an archduke and got a quarter of Serbia killed. Even killing Heydrich, architect of the Holocaust, accelerated the genocide. Anyone screaming about radical left violence today is either historically illiterate or they're preparing the ground for their own crackdown, probably both, but they only care about the crackdown. Because the actual left learned this lesson a century ago. Assassination is what you do when you're not thinking clearly about beating the bastards, when you want to lose heroically, but still lose nevertheless. Because real resistance isn't about anger or desperation or moral purity. Resistance happens when you're beyond angry, when you're beyond desperate, beyond much of what passes for morality. It's about understanding how power actually works, not how it looks, but how it functions. Most people who reach for violence are just committing elaborate suicide. The ones who survive understand the machinery first.